Alrighty, what's going on, boys? We're gonna be recapping the trades from Friday, and we're gonna be recapping. Can't talk. We're gonna be recapping the trades from today. So today was snow for 50%. Today was QQQ calls for 50%, and today was Tesla, and then a small Apple scalp. We'll talk about that one as well. But let's go to the Friday trade. So I took 0DTE Tesla for 250%. Now, guys, it was a profit roll. 0DTE is not something that I use for gauging what my portfolio is going to look like for the day, my return on my port for the day. It's more or less just a profit roll, using slight profits, using a portion of my day's profits to then roll into that closer expiration and look for the maximum amount of gains that I could really get off of it. Trading the price target, trading the chart, going for the highest return possible for the trade, for the planned out take profit versus stop loss, everything like that, right? Always stay calculated with every decision you make, right? So I took 0DTE Teslas at the end of the day on Friday calls, and there was a few reasonings why. First of all, there was really no true seller within the market on Tesla's price action coming into the Friday, right? So Friday's right over here, right? We had this false breakout, it looks like, on the 15. Go to the 5, probably looks like some sort of false flag breakout right here. And then from there on out, you get your boom 11 o'clock hourly clock change from a higher high into a failed breakout. No sustainable bid over this high, and Tesla tape is normally dry. You start getting that shift in your structure. Doesn't hold the higher lows, right? And then from there on out starts breaking down, right? So it wasn't nothing I was, when I noticed it was breaking down, failing higher lows, things like that, I wasn't necessarily looking at all to trade this long. And the only reasoning that I really wanted to trade this thing long was basically just a simple higher low and a stronger close for the daily perspective heading into the new week for Tesla. First of all, we got this major hourly bounce. When you talk about hourly structure, major hourly bounce right here off this trend line, stretching back from, like I said, swing lows of 2023, right? And then from there on out, like I said, carrying through with higher low structure, gap up, and then consolidation. Now this is the range where we're looking at, is this going to be a very big time frame, very, very much larger time frame redistribution in a lower high from a daily perspective on this daily trend, where you get, lower high, third touch, potential false breakout over the trend line, and then it's redistributing with price staying beneath that previous false breakout of that trend line and resistance. So I had to take that into consideration, and calls were kind of off limits for me up here in the upper ranges of this reaccumulation or redistribution. So I'm looking at calls, guys, at potential higher lows stemming from trend line bounces off this higher time frame trend. I felt like that was just the best RR for the scenario that we were in and for what I was really watching. And let's just dive into the intraday price action, things like that. First of all, what I want to talk about is a little bit about the NASDAQ. So when you go over to Friday, right, what do we get? We got, obviously, that massive sell order, $46 million sell on the Apple tape for $195 a share. And then from there on out, it rejected somewhere around here. That's where I took the Apple short we'll go over. And then this started to look like some sort of bear flag breakdown. Boom, false bear flag breakdown. All it's really doing is pushing into this little bar of where we previously popped at, right? As well as like just this general spot where I would start looking at potential higher lows. And then from there, what do we get? We get, like I said, false bear flag breakdown bar, and then we absolutely push from there, and Apple starts breaking that $46 million sell wall. It's completely matched, and then what happens is bidders kind of pinch that 195 spot. You get the retest into it. I'm pretty sure some asks pulled off that area, but overall just looked like a big flip for the market and the overall tapes. And I noticed that, right? And I noticed the indice strength coming from 12:15 in the afternoon, right? And I don't normally trade or look for trades around this general time, but this looked good, and this was just something that I was looking at to really execute for a long side trade. In other things that I liked, right? Other laggers, whatever it may be, right? So another thing that I was looking at was pretty much just breaking this intraday structure of a boom, rejection, double top, lower high. You do have an external high up here, right? That may need to get swept. And then from there on out, what do we get? You get the base, and then you follow through with the upside for the close, right? So that was what I was looking at on the indices. And then Tesla was at this higher time frame trend like I talked about. And from there, what do we get? Here's the Friday action. You get the false breakout. What do you get? Now you're looking like a lower high. You break down, you're losing higher low structure for the time being, right? Not hourly higher low structure, just 5 minute. There's a big difference, right? But there was no true seller within the market right here, right? No true seller from this top, no true seller from this lower high, and it started declining, right? So it was declining, right? And then from here, this is that same general spot, guys, where QQQ started to get that false breakdown look, right? We're retesting into this spot. We're almost like we're climbing into that opening print where you're going to start seeing those buyers step up. And then from there, what do we get? Well, from there, what we get is we get an equilibrium retracement, which is something that I'm always looking at. Didn't really care about it, but it's just another confluence that I like to add to when I'm trading tech long or short. And what do we get? We get a higher low from that opening print on Tesla, right? So I noticed buyers started to really flood the tape, right? I noticed that they started to hold their ground and move up their bid and hold a bid. There's not normally a bid being held on Tesla for such a long duration of time, as it's kind of like market order. It's a tape that really runs off of market orders, and it's very fast. It's a little bit unpredictable, but when things really slowed down and I saw the wider picture of this, I figured, this would be a solid opportunity for me to be looking at alongside trade, considering that there's a strong buyer's bid with price consecutively holding this 240.67, and it's just sitting directly right above 240. So I did pick up some cheaper out of the money lottos. I think they were 242.5s, and those ended up running 300% into price target, which was near those high of day ranges. I first shaved off my first target up here around the 618. It was also sort of like this little imbalance fill. It was like these little series of lows that I was starting to trim off of. I started to get a little worried about this candle, but there wasn't a lot of volume behind it, right? So I kind of followed through with the whole entire plan, and I took this one back into the high day, and then I caught $4 on that move, right? And I'll take that all day, right? I mean, that's gonna pay you on just a few Tesla contracts, guys. You don't need to size so heavily on Tesla, especially later into the end of the day. It was just overall very clean trade from a technical perspective, as well as just the higher time frames really aligning to tell me something, that this would be sort of like your higher low, as well as like the NASDAQ. Like I said, those spots were all kind of lining up to perfection, which is an A+ setup in my book. At least I could have probably also grabbed some 8 DTEs or whatever it is. I could have probably grabbed next week expiration on that, just to protect myself if there were to be some sort of rejection and theta starting to eat away the value of my contracts, right? I could have probably taken a next week expiration, but I figured I had it in the bag and it was an easy trade, and it was. It was pretty stress-free. There was never really a sign to cut, and it was pretty much traded to price target. Let's talk about Apple. This was the sell wall that I was talking about. There was some massive whale that came in on the Apple tape. It was 250,000 shares on the ask. And I mean, I don't know. That, to me, you're going to notice buyers starting to capitulate unless you're seeing a very liquid market where someone's placing their bid right beneath that massive train of sells, which is probably not normally going to happen. And you figure, it may not trigger, or a, a partial fill of that order might take place, but that partial fill of that order, buyers are going to have a hard time matching that order, and we're probably going to need to correct ourselves a bit lower and reset if we're bulls, right? And replace our bids at lower prices where that order isn't going to be stressed about so much. I mean, it was you don't normally see in the middle of an afternoon session $46 million worth of Apple shares being sold. That's just, I mean, it's not a lot in terms of day-to-day Apple transactions, things like that, but it's a lot for, a 5-minute perspective, right? So I took advantage of this massive order coming in, right? And I traded this one right over here. And what did I get? I got like a 70-80% return at highs on the in the money 195 put. Um, this was very clean, as I pretty much just held the trade through seeing buyers starting to capitulate on the tape, right? And pulling that bid, and really just giving up, and letting price fall a bit further to then mark it up as to where they find a little bit more value, or they start building a little bit more of a campaign from a micro perspective. So what happened was I noticed the order coming up here, right? These little bars are, you could check the high on them. They're tapping. Some of them are tapping 195 flat. And of course, you can't really tick above that because that order isn't really going to be absorbed entirely on the first tap. So 195 was a very clear brick wall. And I figured, with how tight the risk really is on this thing, if I seen any sort of large quantity of these shares being filled and matched, then I might want to start thinking about cutting as it goes on, right? And I waited patiently, and I've just been sizing in on bid fills, with pops into this level, even over here. And then I pretty much just traded this to price target back down into where I noticed buyers start, finding a little bit more value for a potential higher low, right? I caught this whole entire bar of capitulation. There wasn't a ton of volume behind these two bars, as they were not tapping 195. Notice the two bars previous to that were both much higher, as they were tapping 195, as well as probably a little bit of orders coming in on the tape that were set right beneath. This was preparing for some sort of breakout, and then that massive order comes in. It starts filling a lot of those buyers that are chasing that breakout, moving up their bid. And then from there on out, what do you start seeing? You start seeing these bids start, you're going to see a little bit of denial, right? And that denial is going to result in at least just a small push down, right? And that's all I was really looking for. I wasn't really looking to have much of any greed. Not at all. So it worked out pretty well, guys. I mean, I caught the trade, and it was pretty easy. Um, here's a quick little picture of the order itself. So yeah, this is the order. Absolutely disgustingly big. And then, yeah, I got like a 70% return on this one. Look, okay, so this is where I said Tesla 5-bagger potential. It wasn't a 5-bagger, but it was good. Okay, yeah, so that's that. I mean, there's really not much more to go over this one. They were obviously filled, as you could see. There's the 1 million volume coming in. There's his orders being all filled, that massive whale. I heard it was like, I can't remember the dude's name. I don't really care at all. 1.5 million shares on a breakthrough of 195, right? And then you obviously get the base on 195, the bitter pinch, right? Makes perfect sense. That's where I said QQQ 390 sweep. So just go look at Tesla. Boom. Perfect timing, right? Perfect timing into the Apple breakthrough. I figured, with no true seller within the market, Tesla seeming a little bit dry over here, right? It basing on these consecutive series of candles, right? And all it's really doing is coming back into those lower ranges of where the opening print was. I had a feel for the tape and I took it. Boom, 200 and I think I took another trade on Friday, but yeah, I mean that was it. Okay, so let's go over today's trades. So I want to talk about a couple of them, like Snow. Um, Snow is just a very clean one because like it's just one of them names that it's just one of them names that it's just one of them names that go perfectly with the overall theme, with the overall with everything that's going on in terms of like cloud names, the relative strength in those names. Um, so I wanted to take a look at this one and really emphasize this one. It was a major earnings pop, high volume, and then these literally like a five inside bars in a row. One, two, three, four, five, six inside bars in a row, on no sort of serious volume, and actually it looks it looks like this is just some shorter time frame, lower time frame reaccumulation, as it's kind of basing in resistance with no true volume, no true seller coming in, right? Market conditions aren't necessarily so weak, right? And I could probably take this one as some sort of outlier mover for the day. I actually slept in today because I've been doing well and I don't really care to be trading December so much. Seasonality of day trading, like seasonality doesn't necessarily favor day trading in December so much. It's just not necessarily so good. But I really wanted to take a look at like this little spot right here. So I said I'm gonna be looking for bid fills. I'm gonna be looking for bid fills on this flag build out with Snow. That was at 10:28 in the morning, and then I caught the bid fill. Um, and I popped immediately, right? So I caught bid fills beneath this low. I saw the buyer stepping in. I saw tape starting to flip a bit, and then from there, I'm in at the bid down here. I catch this pop. I already have leeway on my trade, considering that this could be an outlier kind of mover for the day. And all I'm simply doing, guys, is from an hourly perspective, what am I really doing? I mean, I'm simply just targeting the gap fill right here, this little hidden gap. That's all I'm really looking for. I'm looking for base hits within the range-based indices type of environment. I don't need any sort of crazy trade, and then I just scaled out up here when volume got really weak. And then I had my runners. I held my runners all day for a nice gain up into the resistance. But that was about it for that one. I want to talk about the 10-year auction and the Apple look this evening, and I want to talk about the Q calls that I took, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, so Apple was a outlier mover, right? If you want to turn on EMAs, I don't like EMAs; they're garbage in my opinion. But first of all, what did we not retest? Well, we have this whole entire consolidation slash technically reaccumulation, right? Where there was no true seller within this range. And what do we get? We got some sort of like bull flag breakout on the daily. And what happened was, it's all about progression, guys. It's what I'd like to talk about with people that I teach. It's all about progression. It's all about larger money kind of being passive with where they're defending their progression from, and where they're defending their progression from is coming from these ranges, right? This bar, this breakout bar on heavy volume with a lot of effort behind it. There's going to be that range is going to be defended, right? This is technically your most recent local breakout level, right? And that's kind of where that breakout level started from. It started from right over here, right? This was this most recent high that was untapped, and it broke right through that 191.50. And this was the range in which I was watching for Apple to start looking like a potential long side trade, considering, like I said, no true seller within this tape. There was no, I'm not saying there was any big time buyer, but we started to get those sell climax accumulative looks, subsequent hammer bars and false breakdown patterns, right? Not necessarily false breakdowns, but violent breakdown followed by lower lows being bought and rebid, right? And all this is really doing is defending the progression. And you're going to notice how they are preparing to build some sort of campaign for recovery off of these ranges, right? Off of this range, off of this range, this one and this one. And they start accumulating, sellers start to get tired, and then from there on out, they're kind of wiped out. And the only thing in the way is really the 10-year auction. And I said right here, 10-year auction coming in 30 minutes, Apple 5-minute, can't be bearish unless the auction changes something. This is the chart that I was watching, and all this really was doing was buyers and smarter money rebidding the lower low and rebidding the progression and defending the progression and bidding into that daily 9 EMA. Well, not really the daily 9 EMA. I don't like EMAs. Fuck EMAs. But go into the 5 and you could just tell, right? You reclaim the 192 range. What is this? This is pretty much those lows over here before the extensive gap up, right? So I was looking at the bull flag build out right here and potential break in the structure from this previous support turning now a resistance, looking to now turn into some sort of breakthrough and flipping the trend. And I mean, the market kind of just popped a little bit more on the auction news, and I took like a scalp over here on the break of structure, and I took it all the way up to here for a small gain, whatever. But that's this whole entire thesis is why I took Q calls over here, right? So I think I grabbed them over here on this retest, or maybe on this breakthrough immediately, and then I figured this might retest and then just continue a little bit higher. I was on a 0 DT. It was still a profit roll, and the primary trade for the day was snow. So I wasn't really looking to be risk on at all after that. It was all profit rolls. It was all profit rolling, the snow trade, everything like that, right? So it wasn't something at all that I was eyeing up for heavy size. We'll go over the Tesla trade. So the Tesla trade was a half size trade. Where did I take this? Okay, so I'm trying half size. So here's my little signals channel. Premiums move like shit whenever Tesla doesn't move. So I was trying half size at 1:25 p.m. I may add off 240 if the spot doesn't work, but it wasn't anything too serious. If you go over to 125 for the day, 125 is right here. So I took it, go to the 1 minute, and I'll mark the entry. I took it on this little candle. And I was actually getting a little bit better of a fill than 77. I got like some 74 fills up here at the bid from this retest of this higher time frame. Wait, here. Go to the 5. Of this higher time frame support now looking like it could turn into some sort of resistance. And it was breaking through that trend line from the daily chart. And I figured that there was really no buyer in this spot. And this is going to have to be rebid a little bit lower. Probably most likely into these series of lows that were created, or even lower than that. And like 238 down into like 237.50 was my target. But the damn contracts only ran 18%. So I didn't really make much of anything on it, but yeah, I took it right here. You got the capitulation, and then you got like this base right here, and then it fell a little bit further right into my target. And I even said I'm throwing a fat trailing on this right beneath my. I'm throwing a fat trailing on this right beneath my fucking. What am I trying to say, bro? I'm so tired. Anyway, I threw a trailing stop loss on my runners with a small trim, and I got stopped out for like a tiny gain. It was nothing special. I literally caught like 239.33 down into 238. I caught a dollar move on it. It only paid me 18%. It's a 4 DTE Tesla trade. You need direction. It's a mover. Um, I'm current. Okay, so then I just took a QQQ lotto at the end. Right here. So 224. I got the fills even more, 235 right here. So let's go to 235. I got a $20 fill on this one. Okay, so 235 was right here. Oh, 234. So I filled on this bar a little bit over here and a little bit like up here. And I figured, go look at the hourly perspective. I mean, this needs some sort of retest from a higher time frame perspective, and I can't really remember what my thesis was, but it's a lotto. So that was my trades for the day for Monday today and Friday last week. It's been a boring market, so these trades are more than enough for what I'm looking at in terms of where I'm looking to be for the week and for the day. I'm more than happy with a light size Tesla for 250%. Pretty much held the whole entire position for that, as well as like the free money on Apple. That was a full size trade. So yeah, hopefully you guys learned a little bit about the order book, a little bit about liquidity, and the environment that we're in, and where the opportunity really is, because you really got to be patient for it. This market isn't easy. Later.